All right, welcome in to the Bobby Carpenter Show. It is a football Friday. We love football Friday, Schlegs. I love you in the aviary out there, like kind of Jurassic Park-ish. I don't know what's going on behind you. A little bit scary. I feel like I might see like a Tyrannosaurus Rex just come up and be like, "Bah!" and like bite.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, like you're in those little domes. I don't know which one of the new ones when they're like cruising around in those giant little circles that, you know, the spheres, the clear spheres. But yeah, that's here nor there. But we got ourselves a big game. We're finally here on the eve of it. Got a chance to pop over to practice yesterday. I've actually been to portions of all three practices this week, and pretty exciting to watch. And there was so much energy. It felt like the game was going to be today. I think the guys all wish it was today. They've got a 5-hour flight, which they are in air, I believe, right now, Schlegs, heading out to Eugene. Little best Fridays in football, get moving around a little bit, get stretched out, and then dive right on in. So pretty darn exciting. Eve of the game, like, how are you feeling about this?
I feel great about it. One, I was actually talking to 𝗟𝗓𝗩𝗘, who's a doctor over at the Ohio Sleep Institute. We were going over, I did a sleep study, and we were just talking things that we could potentially give some of our members that are struggling with sleep at the Armory. And he was just describing or discussing, I asked him this question. It is a lot easier to go from east to west than it is from west to east.
Yeah.
And again, because, just the rhythm.
You gain so much time.
You gain so much time, but like when you get there, like you're still up, like they're already up and ready to go. When they get there, they're going to do some things. They're going to go through a walkthrough. They're going to have best Fridays of football, keep the routine. You'll be able to go to bed. You'll be able to sleep and wake up and you just automatically adjust to that time zone a little bit easier than, especially now when you're going to be playing, consequently a 3:30 game, though it's at night there, it'll be a 3:30 game here. So anyways,
it's reversed. It'll be
a reverse. So yeah, it'll be 7:30. Yeah, but still, it's a night game, something that we're used to. So, besides that, I just like the fact that Ohio State can just beat you in so many different ways. As we go through, you and I and all the different guests that we have on this show, Bob, that do a phenomenal job, and I love listening to them. The one thing that they continue to say is that just Ohio State can just beat you in a variety of different ways. There's not one thing. Stop the run. Okay, great. Now you got Carnell Tate and Emeka Egbuka and J.J. Smith. And then you also, in that run game, throw in Will Howard and how he's a big guy. He's able to elude people and sustain drives. You take that, you couple it with the number one defense in the country that always travels well when you go into a road in a hostile environment. I just see a lot of upside in this. The first true test of the season, matchup type game, everything that you want when you sign up to be a Buckeye, or even for that matter, Oregon now in the Big Ten. This is what it's all about.
Yeah, I believe they said they handed out more credentials, Oregon did, for this game than they ever have in the history of the school. And like, how many people cover Ohio State? I mean, well, there's a heck of a lot. I was going to go out there. I was credentialed. I ended up canceling because I didn't end up going. But I mean, there's passion behind this. It's a small stadium. I think there'll be a lot of Ohio Buckeye fans there, though, given the amount of people I know that are on the West Coast heading up, people traveling out there. But these matchup games, this is what you come to Ohio State for. This is what you play for. And you said defense travels, run game travels. Ohio State has been very proficient at both this year. I want to start off with some other things. First of all, we have Andy Staples coming up on the show from On3. Does a great job. We're going to be able to talk to him about some of the other games, give the national perspective of maybe how people are looking at this Ohio State Oregon matchup out west. College game day, as we mentioned, is going to be there. We've got our headlines today, which we'll throw some more little lift it or leave it, which is always one of our favorites. And we'll give our 3 keys that we need to see for this Buckeye victory coming up in the final segment before we wrap up the show with, as always, our dude of the week. And we got some pretty good dudes to recognize this week. But I want to start off with playoff odds, Schlegs. And as we look at it, we got the playoff odds, breaking them down. And Joey Galloway tweeted this out. This is college football playoff and everything else that they've got this up here. But you start off with Texas, obviously 90%. You've got Miami or Ohio State at 2, Miami at 3. But there's that big drop between Ohio State and Miami. You got Georgia, Bama, Oregon, who they're going to be playing, rounding out the top 6. Penn State at 7, Ole Miss. What is crazy about this is you have Indiana sitting there, Schlegs, at 9, which to me seems absolutely bonkers that they are number 9 on this. I don't know if anybody would have been able to predict that at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, where's the money line of them being able to get into the college football playoff?
Well, the odds, I bet you were getting 80-1 to start the season, maybe 100-1. I mean, I'm dead serious.
So they're off this week, and then they have Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State. But Nebraska and Washington are at home. Then Michigan State on the road. Then Michigan, another bye. Then Ohio State, Purdue. If you look at that and what they could potentially do, all of those are winnable until you hit that one versus Ohio State. But like they got a shot, man, to control their own destiny in that college football playoff race, and they just continue to do what they do. They're undefeated right now, Bob. Like it's just, as much as everybody, kind of dismissed their coach and it's IU, they have just quietly had a really good beginning to their 2024 season.
They've been fantastic. Over 50% odds. Notre Dame below them. If you would have said, hey, there's a team in Indiana, Schlegel, that has the top 10 in odds percentages to make the CFP, I think every person to a man would have chosen Notre Dame. No one's choosing Indiana. You got Indiana or Texas after Notre Dame, Tennessee rather after Notre Dame, and then Boise State, with how they're playing, and Ashton Genty, what he's able to do. What a great guy. Said a lot of great things. Why he didn't. I saw this unbelievable piece on Schlegel, why he didn't leave.
Tell me about it. It was awesome.
Yeah. Because you got to think he was going to be getting offered all kinds of cash to be able to leave there. He chooses not to, chooses to stay. And he said it's about legacy. It's about more than just money. There's other things out there. And it's amazing. He's got more rushing yards, for heaven's sake, than their whole entire team of Hawaii. One other thing they got out this week, we got some midseason All-Americans that they're throwing out. I believe this is as per the Senior Bowl. Ohio State puts this out here on their social media stuff. We're going to throw that up. Ohio State's got a couple of guys up there. And what's wild, you have all the skill position players. You got J.J. Smith. You got Quinshon Judkins. We start talking about, TraVion Henderson, Emeka Ibuka, like all these guys defensively, Caleb Downs, everybody else. Well, what's remarkable is the guys that are on there. Well, we got our guy, Seth McLaughlin, who, hey, he's mom, love to shout out. By the way, Seth's girlfriend's name, Sarah. So he's like, if this goes the distance, you'll be Sarah McLaughlin 2.0, which is fantastic. It's tremendous. He's a great guy. And then we've got Ty Hamilton Schlegel. How about that? Popping in there, defensive tackle out of Pickerington, Ohio. And then Simmons, which is it Justin?
Josh.
What do they call him?
They call him Jimmy. No, they call him Jimmy.
I mean, it's all the stinking J's in that room. I mean, I can't handle it. But those three
J's
guys
on my feet, baby.
Well, J's on your feet, J's in your room. But you got 2 offensive linemen, a center, a tackle, and then Ty Hamilton. And this has been pretty awesome to see because I feel like this team, Schlegel, to be good, Urban's talked about it. You've got to be a line-centered, trenches-centered team. And this team definitely seems to have that.
I will say this, from the winter conditioning in the summer, guys, it was focused on good versus good on the front. And those guys, every day, Mick talked about this team, lives and dies by the dudes up front. And they really embodied that, like their work ethic. And you're starting to see it show on the field, the mentality, the mindset going to the second level. When you got 2 guys, TNT, Ty and Tyleek there in the middle, that's a big time deal when it comes to stopping the run. It makes linebackers look a lot better than they are. And then you look at Seth coming over. And again, this is why you and I talked about the other day of this whole new portal window and guys leaving and how it's open. Like, I wish it was like after the other games, not just confined to that, because Seth is one of those guys that we were able to acquire that transferred after the end of his season. He's not going to leave before his season's over if they're in the college football playoff. But look at those 2 guys right there that are on the bottom of that deal, Josh and Seth, both transfers in, both fit the identity of the culture and the program. Josh has been a development guy coming from San Diego State. And guys, everybody was questioning that left side, the tackle position in general. I tell you what, man, Jimmy has done a phenomenal job, not giving up a sack all year. When they talk about bumping your grade up in the EA Sports, he's now at 85. It's just because he's just handling his business, which bodes well for what he's going to do at the next level. And Coach Fry and Chip Kelly, coming together, right? Talking shop. Like the offensive line has been playing fantastic. Glad that they've been recognized.
All right. And then lastly here, we're going to recognize a couple of safeties at Ohio State.
Oh, yes.
One transfer coming in, Caleb Downs. He'll be here this year and next year for sure, before he could potentially leave. As coming in here as a second-year player. Was an All-American at Alabama. Great young player. Freshman started for Nick Saban at safety. Doesn't happen very often. And then Lathan Ransom. And Lathan Ransom's had a long journey here at Ohio State. Played a lot early on as a freshman. Played some as sophomore. He's had injuries here and there, battled getting in and out of the starting lineup. Hurts his foot last year, elects to come back, and it's a huge asset. Only safety duo, Schlegs, as per PFF, with top 10 grades. Lathan Ransom grading out at an 85.3, Caleb Downs at an 83.0. And I don't put the be-all, end-all on the PFF grades, like we've talked about this, but it is a tool. And I do believe that it is reflective. I'm not going to sit there and say it was, 2 better than 6 and get into all of that. But I do believe that there is stuff you can pull from it, especially open field tackles, closing on the ball. Like there's certain elements of it that you can see. And the only team to have those two guys there. So tremendous out of both of them, different guys, different routes at Ohio State. Lathan comes on here with us on Mondays. Awesome dude, leader. And you know that those dudes are going to be turned up here for tomorrow night.
And I love their relationship, like they're roommates on the road, and they're both kind of an old soul. But here's the other thing too, Bob. And Jeff Schwartz said this, the difference in great defenses in college is the safety position. You and I are very blessed to play with two great safeties, and Nate Sally and Dante Whitner-Hidner. And we had other ones too, right? So B. Mitch, right? But like those two in particular, man, like your defense just takes another level when they're both like that. And we have a luxury at Ohio State to have two of the best.
Well, you don't give up big plays because in the run game, they're the last line of defense. They're always sure up and they're always in their gaps. So you don't get those big hitters. They clean up for the linebackers. And then they also protect down the field. They're over the top when they need to. They don't allow those drive-bys, Schlegs. Before we get you out of here, attention, parents, athletes, everybody out. Protect what matters most with X Sports mouth guards, trusted by professional athletes, designed by NHL team dentists. If there's a sport that you want to design your mouth guard, it's the NHL. You see those guys, they're getting hit in the beak all the time. They're scientifically proven to absorb high impact hits to protect your teeth and your brain. The X-Sport mouth guards feature 3 layers of advanced protection, patented carbon fiber that is 3D printed right to your grill so that thing's going to fit well for great protection, better performance, max comfort, clear communication so you can focus on your game, not on your gear. Don't take chances with your safety. Xsportguards.com/Bobby. You save 15%. X-Sport, protect what matters most. Andy Staples, our guy, on 3, up next.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the.
I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like. I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
Welcome back in the show, and now we were pleased to welcome in our guy from On 3. Does a great job covering college football all over the SEC. Going to give us a little national perspective as to what is going on. Andy Staples, give him a follow on X at Andy_Staples. Andy, how are we doing on this eve of what was supposed to be one of the best college football weekends of this season, even though last week
and then last weekend happened, right? No, it's always the ones you never expect. But listen, this one's guaranteed to be great. You got your boys going to Eugene. You got Red River. You got LSU, Ole Miss, like Ole Miss always has problems in Baton Rouge, even though it looks like they're better. It's going to be awesome. And there's going to be some game that we have no idea about. There's going to be some game that just hits us in the face like Alabama Vandy did last week. So I'm pumped.
So let's start right there. You mentioned Ohio State and Oregon. We'll get to the SEC, some great matchups there. Because I think, even Tennessee, Florida, like Florida's been playing a little bit better lately. Like maybe that game could be tighter than what they need. Chance to save Billy Napier's job. I know that, well, maybe saving his job wouldn't make you happy. I'm not sure where you come down on that, Andy. I just heard my fifth grade son tell me, who he loves the Cowboys, told me he wants to see them lose so Mike McCarthy gets fired and then they can move on. I'm like,
he's too young to be that cynical.
That's what I said. I go, you cannot, just because you listen to your dad and hear your dad and some of his friends and guys talk about different coaches and who they think is good, you just want your team to win. Be the purest form of fan when you're only 11 years old. But we've got this Ohio State, Oregon outside 2 versus 3, and Oregon's kind of taking a circuitous route to get to 3. What are we seeing from this matchup?
So I just want to see Ohio State and this roster, which I think is the best roster in the country, playing against elite competition. That's what this is. So now we get to see when they are playing against other future NFL players. Because the only questions I have are in regard to chemistry and just how well everybody plays together. I'm not worried about individual ability. I know Ohio State has the most talent of anybody. So it's going to be interesting to see them against Oregon. Oregon is one of those that it didn't happen immediately for them. They thought they had the best 5 on the O-line when they started the season, and they struggled against Idaho and Boise State, moved some stuff around. You've seen that get better. But then you look at the Michigan State game. Dylan Gabriel throws a couple picks early, and it doesn't look good. And then middle of the second quarter, you see exactly what they're supposed to look like, and they play like that the rest of the game. If they're playing like that against Ohio State, this is going to be a really good game. This is going to be a fun game. I still think it comes down to how well does Ohio State tackle in the open field, because Oregon likes to get the ball on these high confidence passes out into the into open space and maybe 5-6 yards down the field, and you slip a tackle and then you go 20 more yards. Well, against Ohio State, if they drop you right there, what if you drop the next one? Now you're in 3rd and 5. Now you got a problem. So I mean, that's the part where they can really, and you see that with the ultra elite teams where they can really clamp down on some of these offenses that rely on yak yards, where they just say, we're going to keep everything in front of us. You're going to drop a pass or two. And we're going to control the amount of possessions you get.
Yeah, looking at the Oregon front, and we've heard a lot about their defensive line, but really both sides of the football, you got to be able to run it. Like, do you think Oregon will be able to, bow up and do well against the front of Ohio State on offense and defense?
So, Schlegel, I think the way they run it effectively is that Dylan Gabriel is part of running it effectively. I think a good example is last year when Dylan Gabriel was playing against Texas as Oklahoma's quarterback. Now, these are different offenses, obviously, but Oklahoma doesn't win that game if Dylan Gabriel doesn't run for 113 yards. There's no chance. He's the one that kept them alive. And I think that's the key, because obviously, as you guys know, when the quarterback is a run threat, it essentially gives you another person that you're dealing with. It's one less person to block, especially if you're reading somebody. So that's the key. Now, look, the guys who have people to block are still going to have to block those guys. But if Dylan Gabriel can keep a couple plays alive or keep them off balance a little bit, making good read option decisions, yeah, they can run the ball. Because Jordan James, once he gets going, is a really good back. Like, he doesn't need a ton of space, and they'll run him up in between the tackles and they'll bounce him outside. So I do think they have the personnel to do this as long as Dylan Gabriel is running effectively. And one thing I always remind people with Dylan Gabriel that people forget, he was committed to Army before he signed with. Yeah, this was a dude who could run, was going to be an option quarterback. And then Josh Heupel, who was the coach at UCF at the time, because Mackenzie Milton, who was their quarterback at the time, said, hey, there's this guy at my high school. He throws the ball just like Tua. He's a lefty like Tua and throws just like him. You should get him. That's how he became what he is. But he was going to be running the option. So he ain't afraid to get in there and mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, that's interesting, Andy. That's a perspective that I didn't realize. This is obviously he's been to a number of schools. Um, is there any concern? I mean, when you watch the Boise State Oregon game, and it's been a number of weeks. I think Oregon's gotten a lot better with that, especially on the offensive side. But defensively, like their defensive line is supposed to be pretty stinking good. And Ashton Genty he ran up and down, had 3 really explosive gains. Would that be concerning for you as a Ducks fan, seeing that happen against another elite runner?
Yeah, because I got to go against Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. Yes, I would be very concerned about that. It may be that Ashton Genty is just doing some things that we've never seen before. The guy's averaging 10.9 yards carry right now. But yeah, I would be very concerned playing against this team. And we haven't really had to see Will Howard do much with his legs yet. That's another piece of this, that if Ohio State needs to use it, they can use it. Now, this is a part where I'm interested in seeing the difference in Chip Kelly, the play caller, versus Ryan Day, the play caller, because Ryan Day at times would kind of forget that sometimes you're just physically superior and you just ram it down their throats. I don't think Chip Kelly has ever forgotten that once in his life. Like, he loves to run the ball. So I think if it's working, you're going to see them doing that a lot.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break here in a minute and get back to break down some of these other games. If we can keep you for another couple of minutes, Andy. But before we get out of there, like, we're talking about Will Howard, talking about Dylan Gabriel, 2 transfer quarterbacks, these 4th and 5th year guys that are going to schools. You look at Cam Ward, obviously look at DJ at Florida State, Riley Leonard, guys that have played a lot of football. I mean, what would you say the returns are on a lot of these, senior level veteran transfer quarterbacks that have gone to new teams?
Hit and miss. I mean, I think Ohio State and Oregon and Miami would say we got everything we paid for. We got exactly what we wanted. Florida State would be like, nah, this hadn't worked out for us. And I think Notre Dame is probably a sort of mixed bag. I think they're looking at maybe hopefully having a homegrown quarterback next year in CJ Carr. So I think ideally you still want to have the homegrown quarterback. You want to have somebody who's going to be in your system for 2-3 years at least. But if you got the ready-made setup, which Oregon certainly has and Ohio State certainly has, certainly doesn't hurt to plug in a guy who's played a ton of football.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because it's kind of the first iteration of these experiments, whether it can be really good, but can you truly win a national championship with one of those guys? We'll have to figure that out as the season plays on. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We got more with Andy Staples coming up next.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the
They're off in the Kentucky Derby as Authentic takes them around the far turn. Tis the Laws making his move now, and they're into the stretch. These two stride for stride. Authentic, tis the Law. Here's the wire. Authentic has won the Kentucky Derby.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
All right, back with Andy Staples on 3. Does a great job for him over there. Check out all of his stuff, covering everything on college football. Give him a follow on X at Andy_Staples. And Andy, we were talking about some of the games that were big games this weekend. Obviously, a huge one. We just talked a ton about Ohio State and Oregon. One going to be going on in Baton Rouge. I believe they call this the Magnolia Bowl. I wasn't fully aware of that, with Ole Miss at LSU. A big game for both, because by stubbing their toe, Ole Miss kind of eliminates some room for error in the SEC. LSU could maybe lose one still, but you don't really feel great about it. How do you see this playing out? And is this a bigger game for one versus the other?
No, I feel like it's big enough for both of them, because I don't think either one of them can run the table if they lose this one. I think whoever loses is going to lose again. So if you do, you're probably not making the playoffs. So this should have all the feel of an elimination game. And I think Ole Miss should go in confident. You look at what they did to LSU last year. LSU obviously has a different defensive play caller now and a different defensive staff, but essentially the same defensive personnel, but without Harold Perkins, who's out for the season. Their defensive ends have played really well this season. LSU can sack the quarterback this year, kind of unlike last year. But other than that, it's a lot of the same guys that Ole Miss just torched last year. Now, the question is Trey Harris going to play? He got listed as questionable. Lane Kiffin's injury reports are pretty hilarious. They're very long. So don't exactly know what that means. But if he doesn't play, he's got 52 catches this year. The next most prolific receiver at Ole Miss has 17. So now look, that guy's Juice Wells, who is one of the better receivers you're going to see athletically. So it may be that just if Trey Harris doesn't play, Juice Wells, Caden Priestcorn, those guys just sort of pick up the slack. I don't know. But you feel a lot better if you're Ole Miss if Trey Harris plays. I thought Ole Miss showed us against South Carolina, hey, we don't have to score 50 points to win a game in a dominant fashion. I thought that was important for them because they let Kentucky control the tempo of the game they lost. And then you're like, okay, can you only win if it's 45 to 19? Is that the only way you know how to win? Well, they won differently at South Carolina, which is a tough place to play. So maybe that's not the case. For LSU, that offense, Garrett Nussmeier's just got to embrace his inner Jaden Daniels. They're good offensively. I don't know if they're as good as last year. These two teams played an epic shootout in Oxford last year. I would expect it to be fairly shootouty again. And I think that'll be fun because, again, it's desperation mode for both these guys. They got to win this game.
Yeah, you got another game, desperation mode, and that's Kansas State, Colorado. And you got some big games in the Big 12. Utah going to Arizona State, ISU, right? WVU, Arizona, BYU. But like this one really is the one that can propel Colorado to be in that mix and eliminate Kansas State. What are you thinking about in this game? Kansas State going on the road to Colorado.
I am interested to see if Colorado's defensive ends are as good as we saw against UCF. Now, I saw UCF in person last week, and I think a lot of it is UCF's offense just isn't very good. But I like the way that the Colorado Edges have played all year. I think they're very athletic. They're future NFL guys. Okinola, BJ Green. If they have Deion Hayes back, he missed the UCF game. But I feel like those guys are pretty good. And then you throw in the fact that they've got an NFL quarterback and then Travis Hunter, who is the best receiver and the best corner on the field. I do think they have a really good chance of winning this game. If they do win this game, you have to put them in the bucket of the teams that can win the Big 12. Like you have to put them in the bucket of the teams that can win the Big 12 and make the playoff because remember, their only losses to Nebraska. That doesn't even count in the Big 12 standings. Like K-State lost to BYU already. Like if they lose to Colorado here, I mean, you can probably still make the Big 12 title game with 2 losses, but you probably can't with 3. And you look at the rest of the schedule and you look at how evenly matched everybody is. I mean, it's going to be a slog to get through the Big 12. I did, Schlegel, you mentioned another game. You mentioned Iowa State at West Virginia. I don't know how many people know that Iowa State's undefeated right now. But West Virginia has 2 losses, but they're both non-conference losses. So they're undefeated in Big 12 play. So they're basically on even footing here.
Yeah, it's the Big 12, like maybe not the top level teams and maybe not a threat to win a national championship, but as far as conference races and what you're going to see every week, Andy, like I can't tell you who's going to win what game. I mean, I thought for sure Central Florida would drub Colorado, be able to run the ball on them and kind of do what Nebraska did, invoke their will. Did not happen. Kudos to Deion and maybe be in the mix for at least a playoff berth. Now, Red River, the first SEC edition of Red River. Jackson Arnold maybe wasn't as advertised. They kind of pushed Dylan Gabriel out the door, and I don't know if they're backpedaling that now or like he left on his own accord. Maybe he left because they pulled his NIL deal. I have no idea how all that works, but this Oklahoma offense is struggling. Last year they had a nice upset. Do they have any more magic in them this year? Or is this going to be a trouble by the long?
It will require a ton of magic. A ton of magic because their top 5 wide receivers are out, which now look, they were out for the Auburn game too, and they did win that game, but Texas is a lot better than Auburn. And they just, I don't know what somebody did. Like there's a voodoo doll somewhere. Like their poor wide receivers. It's just, it is never ending. It feels like, and Deion Burks, they hoped they were going to get him back, but then he didn't practice early in the week. He's not going to play. So it's really up to Michael Hawkins Jr. and the second tier of their receivers and the running game and an offensive line that's been pretty maligned this year. So like I said about Dillon Gabriel in this game last year, it's going to be up to Michael Hawkins Jr. to run the ball well, to give them a chance to throw the ball. Now, I think the reason they went so quickly to Hawkins after the Tennessee game was that he does give them a better chance of running the ball than Arnold, even though Arnold is a pretty good athlete. But Hawkins can throw. Like he's not in there to be an option quarterback. He's in there because he is pretty mobile. But when he has a chance to air it out, he can. If you saw the Auburn game, there's just an unbelievable throw toward the end, 65 yards, basically a dime, where almost all of it was through the air. And he's got that capability, but they are going to have to turn Texas over. Like that Oklahoma defense is going to have to create some turnovers, create some short fields. That's the only way they're going to win this game.
All right, got two more games quickly want to get to. I mean, should Alabama be worried with South Carolina coming in? And should Kalen DeBoer, I mean, like, dude, this was like the full story of Easter. I mean, they brought him in on the palms and ready to go. And then next thing you know, I mean, we're putting him on the cross after losing, with Georgia and then Vanderbilt in 1 week.
Bobby, he wore a T-shirt for the Vandy game. The Alabama coach doesn't wear a T-shirt when he coaches in a game, for God's sake. It's so funny. Like, it is every nice thing they said is gone, is over, and now he's a bum. I think he's probably still a pretty good coach. But they should worry about South Carolina. South Carolina is a more talented team than Vandy. Lenora Sellers, when he's running the ball well, it gives you a lot to worry about. That said, I think Alabama probably will be focused coming into this game. You better be focused. I mean, imagine if they're not. Imagine the call to Stefan next Monday if they don't win this one.
I don't know the last time they've lost consecutive games. Like,
I don't either.
I mean,
oh my God, I'm trying to remember. Like, because they lost the Iron Bowl in 2017 and made the playoff, but then they ended up winning the national championship. So they won the next one there. Yeah. I don't even. Now I got to do some research. Probably Saban's first year there, because they lost to Louisiana Monroe that year. But I'm trying to remember the order of the other games they lost.
I mean, you would have to say, 2007. I think Saban's first year was the last time they lost consecutive.
Oh wait,
games.
They lost to Florida in the SEC championship game and lost to Utah in the bowl game. That's probably it.
That might be your answer, and especially like regular season, you take out like conference championship games and the like in bowl games. And then the last question here, another Big Ten game. Finally get to see some nice games between the new additions. Penn State heading out to USC. We heard James Franklin lamenting the fact they have to fly out of Harrisburg and everything else, but they're 4-point favorites. If Penn State goes out there and pounds the ball on them like Michigan, like Minnesota, what does that say about Riley and where they're at as a program? Because it's not like he just got there yesterday.
Yeah. So for all of us who have had to planes, trains, and automobile it into State College, we have no sympathy for your bus ride to Harrisburg, James Franklin. None.
We made that, Andy. We made that flying into Harrisburg before a game one time and not getting.
I'm sure. So nobody who's ever had to get to State College feels sorry for them. I actually kind of feel sorry for USC's defense on this one, because I think this is where we find out if Penn State is really more dynamic this year. Because I go back, like, they haven't had to turn it loose. But you go back to the West Virginia game, and I mentioned West Virginia earlier because I actually think West Virginia is pretty good. And they had a weird game against West Virginia where there was this massive lightning delay in the middle of it, and it was essentially two different games.
Oh, yeah.
But in both versions of that game, Penn State just kicked the crap out of West Virginia, and the offense looked fun and dynamic. And I could see them turning it loose on USC because they are just flat better than USC. I was laughing. We had T-Bob Hebert from Baton Rouge on. And so he and Aaron Murray have this show together, and they're talking about how when USC joined in the Big Ten, there was this meme where they said, you didn't like playing Utah in the Pac-12. Congratulations, you just went to a conference of Utahs. Penn State is the most Utah of them all. Like, Penn State is the Uber Utah. Yeah. And so I don't think that's a good matchup for USC. And like you, to your point, so if you noticed at Big Ten Media Days this year, Lincoln Riley was managing our expectations pretty hard about, look at what I inherited. I'm not a miracle worker. Okay.
Yeah.
You can't say that in year 3 in 2024. Like
USC. I mean, you're not UCLA.
Yeah, you've had a chance to flip the roster, dude. No. You can't say that. And so I do think they are better defensively than they were last year, but the Michigan game and Minnesota game tell us they're not that much better. And then the Minnesota game is concerning because, like, Michigan, you understand who else has Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham and Will Johnson. Like, nobody else has that. Well, Penn State's kind of close.
Yeah.
But Minnesota was doing that to him. Like, Minnesota drove Miller Moss insane. What the hell's Penn State? What's Abdul Carter going to do to him?
Yeah.
Right.
It's going to be a rough one. I'm curious to see kind of where this goes for USC this year and what their answers could ultimately be. Andy, we appreciate you spending some time with us today. Awesome job as always, and look forward to having you back here sometime soon.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
He is Andy Staples on 3, does a great job there. Go check him out, folks, and then give him a follow on X at Andy_Staples for great college football content. Coming up next, we've got our headlines. What's going on in the world of college football? Lift it or leave it. Coming up next on the Bobby Carpenter Show. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Bobby Carpenter. I want to give a huge thank you and a shout out to Affinity Whole Health, the leaders in the testosterone replacement industry. I've been on a testosterone replacement program for a few years right now, and I've got to tell you, it's been an absolute game changer. Affinity Whole Health has allowed me to be the best version of myself, both mentally and physically. I loved how easy it was to get started. I booked my free consultation, met with my prescriber, checked my numbers, and Affinity Whole Health designed a program that was customized to fit my needs. So I'm telling you guys, if you have low energy, you want to get rid of that spare tire around the waist or take it to the next level in the bedroom, Affinity Whole Health is the place to get started. So don't wait any longer. 5 minutes of your time, book your free consultation. You're going to love the way you feel. All right, welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show, and I want to tell everybody about my friends over at Affinity Whole Health. Affinity offers personalized treatment plans to help you feel better, whether you're struggling with weight loss, muscle loss, poor sleep, low energy. Maybe you just can't get around with the kids the way that you used to. Your wife's throwing stuff on you. You need to take care of things. Listen, Affinity can help you with all that. They'll give you the energy to help you live your best life and get you feeling good. They provide expert guidance for you to safely reach your health goals. They've got Ohio covered. Places in Cincinnati, or not Cincinnati, places in Columbus, in Cleveland, in Indiana, in Indianapolis, Chicago. Go check them out online at affinitywholehealth.com. That is affinitywholehealth.com. All right, Schlegs, here we go. We've got our welcoming our guy, Pat, for a little lift it or leave it.
What's up, guys? Yeah, we got another 3-pack for you coming up. But so the first one we're going to start with, Ohio State, Oregon is the new rivalry. The best new rivalry in the era of conference realignment. Lift it or leave it.
I'm gonna lift that. I would have thought there was going to be Ohio State USC. USC's losing to Minnesota, for heaven's sake. Like, they can't stop the run. They're not tough. The Red River rivalry just transitioned from one conference to another. BYU Utah coming together could be pretty good. But honestly, like, this Big Ten Pac-12 merger, Oregon has been the premier team in the Pac-12 for the last decade, really since Chip took them to national prominence and with Bellotti. I love this. I'm going to lift this because this could be the start of something that's going to be great. Hopefully, they can keep playing on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah, another one that you could throw in there would be Texas playing Georgia, which is the following week, right? So that's another one that just comes into the mix. But I'm gonna agree with you, Bob, just because I'm excited that Oregon's in the Big Ten and just beating them in the first college football playoff championship in 2014. I've been a part of that. I'll lift it.
Right off the stage.
All right, guys. Chris Plank, our guy, talked about it yesterday on the show, but Texas could beat Oklahoma even if Quinn Ewers isn't 100%. Lift it or leave it.
I'm going to lift that because if Quinn Ewers isn't 100%, I think he's still probably good enough. Now, the only thing, if that Oklahoma D-line gets after him a little bit, but here's the thing for Texas. Like, you've got your ace in the hole, Arch Manning, if you need him. And Arch is I wouldn't say much better athlete than Quinn. He is a better athlete than Ewers. He's a heck of a much better athlete than his two uncles. He can move, he can throw it. Texas, I think, is much more talented than Oklahoma. For Oklahoma to win, Hawkins, as Stable said, he's going to have a day, a magician, like 100 on the ground and 300 in the air. Maybe he's able to do that at the Texas State Fair. I don't think so. I think that the Texas takes care of business, even if Ewers isn't 100%. I'm gonna
lift it as well, and here's why. I mean, I like Oklahoma's defense, but Texas's defense, they've had 12 sacks in the past 3 games, 38 tackles for loss in the last 3 games. That means that Oklahoma is not going to be able to do a lot of things on the offensive side of the ball, which they're going to have to do, but it's all going to be predicated upon their defense. I like Texas in this regardless of who's at quarterback.
All right, Pat.
Yeah, last one, guys. So if Cam Rising can finish out the year at Utah, he will regain his spot on the all-Meathead team, courtesy of the Bobby Carpenter Show, the all-Meathead team.
I would like to put him on there, the all-Meathead team, something that Hester and I put, Jacob Hester, we do our show off campus on Sirius XM from 3 to 6. I'm on there a couple times a week with him and EJ. The all-Meathead team, Schlegel, is the best meathead at every position. And Cam Rising was that dude because he seeks out contact as a quarterback. Now, he maybe has torn his ACL and injured himself quite a bit. He's got to play, though, to be on the all-Meathead team. If he plays and comes back and shows us that reckless abandon, he's the leader out there that everybody knows he can be, he can get that spot back on the all-Meathead team. But as of right now, I mean, I think Navy's quarterback Schlegel is making a hard charge for it. There's a couple other dudes out there that are choosing to say, hey, I mean, we're tough guys. We're meatheads. We play quarterback. It's all good. But I will lift this if he comes back.
I'm going to leave it because of just what you said from the Navy quarterback, but also you can sprinkle in Will Howard in there because we haven't seen him have to use those legs. And I think it's coming as we progress in this season. You're going to see a lot more doses of Will Howard.
He's got legs. He knows how to use them. Was that
she's got legs, but yeah, he has them as well.
Oh, no, it wasn't. Okay, no. About Will Howard. All right. Well, that's it for our headlines today, brought to you by Affinity Whole Health. Coming up next, we're going to hit our 3 keys to the Buckeye victory in our tailgate talk, brought to you by Real Truck. Coming up next on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the
Building a home for the people who are worth it. Stepping out, throwing in a line, and dropping the tailgate for a picnic. And finding far-off campsites with the people you're closest to. Upgrade your truck, Jeep, or Bronco with over 1 million parts and accessories and bring your truck to life. Real Truck.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
All right, welcome into our tailgate talk, brought to you by friends over at Real Truck, the #1 truck accessory brand in the United States, with top-selling upgrades for the ultimate tailgate party. They can turn your truck into just about anything you want, and Jeep and all kinds of stuff. They've got interior, exterior upgrades that you are going to love. So gear up for the season. Bring your truck to life. Don't let it look like some stock truck off the lot. Make it way better than that. Go to realtruck.com. All right, Schlegel.
Yep.
Give me your 3 keys, your 3 nuggets for the Buckeyes to get it done out in Eugene.
Very simple. Control the line of scrimmage. Oregon has 16 sacks on the year. We have 17 sacks. I think it's going to be imperative that we run the football and make them one-dimensional. So control the line of scrimmage. 2, turnovers. We saw it last week in the game versus Iowa. Great defense. You can't turn the ball over. That score should have been 21-0 at halftime. Dylan Gabriel's thrown 3 picks this year. We got to get some turnovers in this game, set up field position. Last, something that we haven't talked about, win the special teams battle. I don't know if that comes down to not giving up a big play. Maybe Brandon Ennis has a big punt return, or maybe there's a kickoff return. More importantly, as we've seen this year in college football, make a field goal when you have to, right? So we haven't seen that. Fielding hasn't had to make one of those big-time kicks. Can we do that to win the special teams battle in a matchup game?
All right, matchup games. Ohio State heading out to Oregon in Eugene, on the road in the evening-ish out there at night on the East Coast. Going to be a great, great game. 3 things that I'm looking for that I'm going to be watched and honed in on. Number 1, the interior of the Ohio State offensive line. We're talking about Donovan Jackson. We're talking about Taylor Shabola at guards. We're talking about Seth McLaughlin in the middle, what they're going to be able to do. Can they continue to get that push? Can they keep a clean pocket for Will Howard? Yeah, we can talk about, Simmons and Fryer on the outside and what they're able to do, but really it's those 3 inside guys. Can they get that push? Because that's where the strength of this Oregon defense, in my opinion, is with Caldwell and Harmon. Derek Harmon, the transfer from Michigan State, very talented defensive tackle inside. The Buckeyes are familiar with him. They've seen him before. They understand what he's about. They cannot let them get penetration. They can't let them wreck that running game. If they control it inside, I believe they'll get downhill. They'll get downhill in a hurry. Flip it on the other side. Dylan Gabriel, skilled runner, Schlegel.
Yep.
He's not the tallest guy in the world. And about 6'1"-ish. He's a lefty, he's southpaw. And early in the season against Idaho, against Boise, as Andy Staples talked about earlier, they were having issues protecting him. They were having issues with their offensive line, the interior of that offensive line. Now, Jeff Schwartz, Oregon alum, we had him on earlier this week as well. He talked about how they've kind of transformed and moved some guys around, got some new dudes in, and how they're pretty darn good up front on the inside now. And that is shown over the last couple of weeks. It's going to come down to TNT, Tyleek, and Ty Hamilton. What can they do? Can they get pushed? Can your guy, K-Mac, McDonald, can he, when he comes in there, what will he, Hero Canoe, Tywin Malone, when they start rotating guys, can they all dominate inside? Can they push the pocket back in his face, force him outside so that JT and Jack, who have been playing well and been much more productive this season, been in on some big-time plays, can you get that done? Those are the things that I see in the trenches that are going to be big. And then lastly, Schlegel, I'm looking at Will Howard, 5th-year quarterback, played in huge games at Kansas State. You're on the road. It's going to be a hostile environment. You're going to have to make some big plays through the air. You're going to have to make them with your legs. You're going to have to be calm. You're going to have to be poised. You're going to have to be an elite decision maker. All of those things need to happen for Will Howard. This is why you came to Ohio State. He has talked about it. You don't come here to play Western Michigan and Akron and whoever else. You come to play big-time games, prime time, NBC, against top 5 competition. If Will Howard is elite, it's not. I think it's a 2-score game. I'm telling you that right now. If he doesn't make mistakes and plays the way he has for much of this season, that's it. Those are our 3 keys to a Buckeye victory. And Tailgate Talk brought to you by Real Truck. Coming up next, we got our Dude of the Week. Remember, a dude is not a gender. A dude's a lifestyle. It can be anybody on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
Well, how do they know I'm doing this? Did somebody leak this out?
It's social media.
Oh.
It's just, that's the way social media works now.
I thought maybe you were just running that yep.
Welcome to Big Play, a sports media team that started back in 2014, and now we're not in a garage. Look at us, incorporating some of Cleveland's favorite sports personalities, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland. Coming to you live from the shores of Lake Erie and Burke Lakefront Airport, join Team Big Play for all the best sports talk in Ohio. Check us out on social media at Big Play, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
All right, so it's time for our dude of the week. And my dude of the week is someone who I really didn't enjoy in their prime. As he started getting older, I really began to appreciate him and enjoy him for what he is. 38-year-old Rafael Nadal, beat up, battered, injury-ridden, officially announced his retirement from men's professional tennis. Man won 22 Grand Slams, 14 French Open titles, the career Grand Slam with winning Wimbledon and grass, which he was not great at, going against Federer, one of the all-time grass greats. Was able to win that in 08 and in 10, won the Australian in 09 and 22 for his final title, that in the French, but winning 14 French Opens. Schlegel, he won 81 straight matches on play. 81 straight, the longest single surface win streak in Open era history. The lefty, he was beaten up, played in the Olympics, passed the torch off, and did one heck of a job. And it was really, really fun to see him go. He had an unbelievable passing and just retirement speech as he talked to it, and he speaks a bazillion languages. But the Spaniard, Schlegel, he is my dude of the week.
Yeah, parlez-vous français there, Bob. Hey, I would say this. My dude of the week has to be, because we're going to stick in the great state of Ohio, Guardians pitch hitter David Fry comes in, go-ahead two-run homer in the 7th inning. Then, more importantly, guys, a bunt. He lays down a bunt. Listen, everybody out there that has kids, like, you got to learn the fundamentals of the game of baseball. Why is my dude of the week? He comes in and pitch hit. Guess what? When called upon, you got to respond. Boom, home run. Guess what? Bunt. Go Guards.
Fantastic show today. Great job, Pat. Thank you, Andy Stables, for coming on. Folks, it's a big Friday, Football Friday game week here. Thank you for tuning into this edition of Bobby Carpenter Show. Be back Monday to watch us break down, hopefully, I think so, that Ohio State win over Oregon. Schlegel, before we get you out of here, I got the Buckeyes 31-17. What do you have, Matt?
That's exactly what I have, 31-17. It's on the bottom of the script. Love it.
All right. Go Bucks. We'll see you on Monday.